Michael Forman, tell me about your vision.
Tell me my vision. My vision for business is a little different than my business personal life, but my business for vision is really to get on more stages and tell the masses about how to network and communicate with one another. Because I strongly feel that really, as of the pandemic, people lost their minds. They forgot how to not only network, but communicate with one another. And that can transcend between business and personal life because just walking into somebody at the grocery store or somewhere else, they don't know how to converse without the use, here we go, of the cell phone. And you take that away from them, they're like, oh no, what am I going to do now? You speak, you talk, you be present.
Dude, that's huge. You talked about in your form submission learning how to build rapport.
Yes.
Right. And so I put along the bottom here part of that form submission because it goes back to the fundamentals. And if we look at the best sports stars of all time too, they were all highly built around the basics, the boring, the fundamentals. Right. And you're talking about it. It's something that is completely overlooked in the business world. I love what you said here. You said not only have we kind of forgotten the basic skills, but you said if done properly, you will increase profits almost immediately. I mean, I would agree. It in fact, I would say you can increase profits very much immediately. If that's one of the missing components of what's going on, and I would agree, most people are missing that. So, what does that look like? How do we get people back to the basics?
Well, it's really simple. It's fundamental. For you and I, that may not be that difficult because everything I talk about is common sense. Okay. But the whole fact is, if you listen to the other person, now you brought up the rapport building, and that I use an acronym FORM, FORM, and that is family, occupation, recreation, and a message where everybody can on the same level. But if you remember that as you're speaking with somebody, you can get on the same level as them with just about anything. Now, I was a baseball coach for 16 years. I was an umpire for 3 years. So when it comes to youth sports, I can talk to anybody. So my first question to them was like, "Oh, is that your son? Is that your daughter? Do you have any children? Whatever." And they say yes. I well, is he involved in sports or is she involved in sports? And he says yes. I'm like, that's a home run because I'm there.
Right.
And I get to talk with them. And the more you talk with them, the more you let them talk, the quicker their barrier comes down
Right.
because people love to talk about themselves. They love
Yes.
to talk about their families. And by all rights, you should let them and you should have the conversation go like that. And as you're asking questions and you're making mental notes, but rapport building is so important because that goes into the follow up, and the follow up is a whole nother talk we're going to have.
Yeah.
Um, because if you don't have the right follow up, you might as well not even have met him in the first
Well,
place.
and it's something that can be right. So we're gonna tackle this from a couple different angles. I'm gonna play angel's advocate. And in fact, some people would say devil's advocate. In that regard, and it depends on the context and your circumstances. So the one thing I'll say is for those of you visionary leaders listening in, Michael said you should. I would say you could. It depends. Is that right for your scenario and setting? Right. If you're an attorney who's working in criminal defense, it's going to be different than if you're working on the little league with children. Your type of rapport is going to be different. And I know that Michael, you know this too. In that regard, what can happen is if depending on the type of context you're in, certain rapport questions may not be appropriate because it puts you in the position of the friend zone where you no longer have a certain authority. My doctor, my surgeon should not come in and be like, hey, bro, what's up, man? Yeah, we're gonna kind of work on your back, but I'm gonna let somebody else handle the talking to you about it, okay? Right. There's a context of how rapport can be built in business and in life, and we can learn when we can learn to navigate those. Um, we will be more effective leaders in those communities with those opportunities. And that nuance is what often separates profitability and productivity from being just busy, and creating a whole bunch of friendships that don't necessarily move somewhere. So I'm not saying don't be friendly, but we got to dive deeper into this rapport aspect. So feel free to lead the way on that, Michael.
It depends on what you said, who you are and what you're doing. If
Yes.
you're an attorney trying to get to the bottom of things, and believe me, I used to work for a law firm, so
Mhm.
I know
That one
what
well.
you're talking about. Okay. But if you're going to a networking event
Mhm.
and you're out there to meet people and to see people, your first thought should always be, how can I give? Not
Yes,
receive. How can I
exactly.
give? And
100%.
what goes around comes around. But it's all part of the same process. And it's very important for you to know your place. If you were that attorney, you don't want to get too friendly. Now, I work for an injury attorney. So the whole idea
Mhm.
was for me to get that friendly because you want them to trust me.
Yeah.
If I was a divorce attorney or a criminal attorney, not so much.
It's funny. I love this topic. It's something that I want to make sure that we have the time to give you the respect to be able to build around the process. I also want to give a shout out to Clayton Hicks, who came on this show. He has the best framework and the easiest and simplest framework I've ever seen for building rapport. I've never seen anything come close to just how well his version of, well, if we want to learn to listen to people, what are the questions that we ask that support and build the rapport without going out on a ledge and accidentally ruining rapport before it even starts? I'll give you one small example for the audience on this. If my opening rapport line or question or topic of interest in that individual is, hey, what's your favorite sports team? Or hey, do you have a family? Well, what happens is if they don't have a family, the answer is no. If they don't like sports and they say, well, I don't like sports, you've just created a negative cycle by taking a stab at something that's more related to you than actually asking a universally applicable question that gets at the heart of what Michael's talking about, which is, again, how can I help this person? How can I show up and serve this person really well? So do you have in mind some basic rapport building questions that are kind of universal that you typically lead with? And if not, is there another topic you want to go towards that we're also overlooking? We got 10 minutes to talk about awesome things.
We're,
So
there's a whole lot to talk about,
yes, there
and
is.
we'll stay on that form that I was talking about.
Okay.
The family, the occupation, the recreation, because when you approach a table, it's a networking table,
Hmm.
and you're getting feedback from one or two of the people, then you're asking them about themselves and you're letting them talk to you. So if they have a family, they're going to tell you. If they like skiing, they're going to tell you. They like their job, they're going to tell you. So you're gathering all this information without you saying a word and putting yourself in that position. Now, the most important thing is that you listen, not just hear them, but you listen to them. And then after you listen, you pause. And how important is that pause?
Mm,
Right? Because
critical.
what does that tell them? It tells them, look, wow, Michael was listening to me and I responded to something he said, not the next thing I wanted to talk about, but responded to what he said or is saying. And that gives
Yes.
you that credibility, that gives you everything that you need to, you're building that rapport, and it goes on from there. So if you're doing everything correctly, and he's telling you all of this information, then you can say, you know something? I like what you do. I like how you're doing it. How can I be the best referral source for you? How can I make your life that much more easier or simple? And that usually blows them away.
Right.
So, you
Absolutely.
know, if you did your job right, then he's going to ask you what you do and your business card and everything else. But that's secondary.
Hmm.
Primary is to get all his what he wants to talk about out.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Again, it aligns really well with those five topics. I had to look back in the notes. I was like, all right, Clay, would you grant us? Because it was, it began with, tell me about your story. And I loved that that was that opening topic because everybody has a story, right? And everybody's story, if you do what you said, right? If they tell me a story, and even if they tell me a short story, if I'm able to, be quiet and but be captivated, right? I'm engaging with eye contact, right? I'm engaging with an emotion that I sincerely care. And if the silence doesn't lead to a bite, or if they're sales driven, I'm talking about leadership sales, people who already have the acumen to know that they're supposed to turn the question and ask you something, right? And take control over that situation. Then being ready to be able to ask, oh, that's a great question. And like, I'm dying to know more about this. Like, tell me more about X, Y, or Z, right? Of what they just talked about. We've got a we've got a couple of tricks, right, that we can use. They're tactics, they're tricks. What are those? They're tools. What are tools? Things, that resources, assets that are at our disposal to be able to cultivate and build better relationships. So I love that, using silence, saying, tell me more about that, taking sincere interest in individuals. And again, that story will usually give you the safe nuggets of where to then go from there
Exactly.
and build a
Exactly.
very powerful relationship. So
They will give you the direction to go in.
exactly. So, networking and communication. I mean, those are both very powerful realities with that. You asked two questions on here. Why? Why is it that we don't get results? And what's wrong with follow up? We're not going to have time to answer both today, but people can follow up with you regarding this too. You can reach out to Michael Forman on LinkedIn. I'm sure you can find his website quite easily. In fact, I'll give it to you now. It's michaelforman.com. And it's
Michael
that easy
A.
to get.
Foreman, Michael A.
Oh,
Foreman.com.
michaelaforman.com. Thank
Right.
you for correcting me on that. I missed that A. And we're going to dive in on the second one. What's wrong with follow up today, Michael? Because I have my thoughts on it too. Let's crush this for people.
Okay. There are so many things wrong with follow up. It's incredible. First of all, either people don't do it or they don't do it properly. Okay. So it's usually, I'm going to send them an email the next day, or I'll send an email the next day and a week later and see what happens. That's 100% the wrong way. And I'm a huge, huge proponent of the handwritten thank you card.
Mm,
So after you meet with somebody, let's say, because there's a whole thing that I go through with the business card, you write down the date, the name of the function, and a little bit about them. So your follow up, the first email should be that evening and just thanking them to meet them. Just thanking them. That's all. No sales pitch. No, do you want to meet? Nothing. Just thank them. Okay. The next morning, you send out a handwritten thank you card and just say, look, hey, this is Mike. I met you on such and such date, such a place. I really thank you for meeting with me. We talked about your son. Sorry to hear about that. Hope he feels better. And I'll sign it, Michael. And
yeah.
I'll wait about 3 days to send another email saying, hey, this is Michael. Remember me? I saw you such a place, whatever. Look, I just looked at my calendar and Tuesday and Wednesday of next week opened up. How's Tuesday?
There's levels for this. So
There's
I'm gonna dive in on
all
this one
different.
because
Yep.
Tony Robbins does not have time to write handwritten thank you notes for every single person that he meets, nor does Richard Branson.
Right.
Right. And so it doesn't mean, though, that Richard Branson does not care about the 8 billion people. I think he's done a good job of emulating how much he cares about people. So it's not a bad call, but I also don't think, unless the handwritten note is from my mom, I really don't care too much about the handwritten notes that come my way. But let me put some context on this, Michael, because there's other important opportunities here. One is when Frank J. Picaro, who's also really good friends with and associates with JP Sears, when I met him at a conference and I started to work my way home, he sent me a voice clip. He sent me an audio clip via Facebook, and it was one of the most sincerest and endearing. And I was like, holy crap. He probably did that for at least 60 people at this event. And at the same time, the tone, the cadence, the genuine nature, the connection of, friendship, but the authority that still existed there was completely maintained. So I'm not saying don't write your thank you cards at all. If you love thank you cards, do that. I'm saying that there's other ways that could be more powerful at scale for those of you who are serving a whole lot more individuals. So that's something to be aware of. The other opportunity that exists there that goes hand in hand with this follow-up opportunity is I never follow up without providing more value, ever. I will always, I call it the golden rule of follow-up. I'm going to drop this too as part of this episode. Let me pull my screen up for you guys. This is the infrastructure for the golden rule of follow-up. Michael, you're welcome to have this, adapt it, use it as you want. It talks about the kid in the car who's asking dad, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Versus being able to say something like, hey, dad, isn't your favorite restaurant coming up? And dad goes, we'll be there in 10 minutes. Like, see, we can learn to do tricks for people of different mindsets, the time warrior, the gifter, the snap, the nerdy sidekick. There's ways we can actually follow up that provides new value and never puts us in that position with the individual of them saying like, he's just calling. He's just going to call and ask me where we're at with this again. Right. So knowing how to respect the individual enough to always bring new value in hand is a critical component. I'm a huge fan of making sure you follow up, because if you're not following up, they're out of sight and out of mind, and it shows you do not care about them. You've got to care about people if they're going to do business with you.
I agree 1,000%.
Let's say you wrap this up. So go ahead, Michael. What else you got?
Well, I was just going to say, because the thank you cards is one facet. That Facebook clip, or even with the email, they now have the clip to go along with the emails. You can do the very same thing. That's for a much bigger audience. Okay, I'm talking about if you met 10 or 15 people.
I do it at small events too.
Okay, so it varies, and it depends on you as the person. Okay,
Correct.
on what you're comfortable with. But
exactly. That's why we're giving both. It's like this audience,
absolutely.
They're going to take things from you. They're going to take things from me, right? They're going to decide, man, do I play the saxophone? Do I play the trumpet? Do I play the guitar? So we've just served the audience with an incredible amount of different types of values. And they know we're both mathematicians drawing in a chalkboard as fast as we can to serve them. Right. And that's really what we gained out of this. So is there any final principle you'd like to share before we wrap up today?
Well, no, it's just really the whole thing about when you meet somebody, give them the respect, be polite. And if you are respectful, polite, and everything else, you'll go 10 times further. And if you build that rapport,
100%.
having them speak and talk and do that follow up properly, because so many people do it improperly. But if you do it properly, when I say you'll gain profits, you'll see an increase in profits the next month. By the next month, you will see an increase because you're paying so much attention to your client or prospective client that there's no ways but to handle and get more profits.
Very good. And I will almost second everything about that. Well, here's what I love about Michael. You guys know, listening to this show, that Michael's teaching the exact same stuff that we do. And that's exactly what we want. We want people who come on the show who can validate, reinforce principles, and help people understand. If you gravitate more towards the way he teaches stuff, by all means, reach out to Michael and work with him too. We see him as a friend, as a strategic partner in the process of helping people understand these principles that are overlooked. What I will say is none of us control the outcome. The only person who controls your results is God. And that's what I believe. So you might do all those principles, But if you're a farmer and you follow the law of the harvest and a hurricane comes and wipes out your crops and you do not yield a return, that's not Michael's fault. That's not my fault. That's not your fault. That may be what is best for you at the time. So stick to the principles regardless of what the outcome is. Be the person who does the right thing, knowing that doing the right thing yields the best results for you. And yes, the profits are highly likely to come. And here's the other kicker on this: when you treat people with respect, when you are polite, when you overcome stranger danger by showing them that they are safe to work with you, you won't get as fast of commitments, but you will get far more authentic commitments. You will have people who very much value what it is that you can provide, and they will want to stick with you. And loyalty is something that is very hard to come by in a culture of swipe right, always look for the next best thing because we got worldwide access. So sticking to the principles of loyalty can create phenomenal relationships that will absolutely turn up your profitability. And we look forward to seeing all of you on the next episode of Vision Pros Live. Take care, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a vision pro yourself.